Welcome everyone to the Bellator New York City Bellator 180 Bellator pay-per-view Sonnen versus Silva post-fight 6-round post-fight show with me, Zane Simon, and my co-host Eddie Mercado tonight, talking about this weird fucking card from Bellator.
Weird is the perfect word for this. This entire card was weird as hell, but it was fun at the same time. So it had like this kind of weirdness, like jankiness to it that, it was just in the air. Like you felt it. All sorts of just oddities going on, like weird injuries and upsets. And I mean,
Yeah,
Vanderlei's fighting Sonnen. Like, how much weirder can it get? Double knockdown. Holy shit.
I know. I don't think anybody who watched this, especially like if you bought it with a group of friends and you had people over, like I don't think people will be too disappointed. But it definitely also comes away like it's not the rise in weirdness where you're like, oh, this is huge. I feel the hugeness. I'm overwhelmed by the sense of glamour, and it's really fucking weird. This was just weird.
This was definitely just weird. But, I mean, there was a lot of finishes, which you got to love that.
So, start out at the top. Chael Sonnen versus Wanderlei Silva. Honestly, probably the most legit feeling fight on the whole paper. I mean, like, not really, because you can't, it didn't overshadow Douglas Lima versus Lorenz Larkin. But it definitely...
It was a real fight.
Yeah, it definitely overperformed. I was impressed that Chael Sonnen didn't quit immediately. I don't know if it's a commentary on him or on Silva's toughness that despite having forgotten everything he ever knew about counter wrestling, he also did not quit despite giving up takedown after takedown after takedown every round. But yeah, I mean, Silva almost finished Sonnen twice in that fight, so... It was a much more fun fight than I expected, and not at all sad. Just fun and weird.
You nailed it. It wasn't sad, and that was the most surprising thing. I mean, these guys actually showed up and put on an intriguing, somewhat exciting fight. I mean, there were serious lulls in this fight when Chael was doing his thing, but anytime Vanderlei got to his feet, you're like, oh, is he gonna do it? Is he gonna knock him out? And then boom, double leg.
Yeah,
good fight though, man. Good fight. Good fight for the senior league.
Good fight for the senior league. As fun as it could have been, really, without either guy getting like really sadly finished. Although seeing Sonnen get wobbled is just kind of fun at this point. I don't know. I don't hate the dude, but there's no more fun than watching somebody with his certain brand of confidence lose horribly.
Well, yeah, anytime someone with a big mouth gets rocked or just punched in that mouth, it's, you take a certain joy in it.
Yeah, him cutting a promo off of the recently deceased Fedor was also a little like, it's like, man, I wish you'd lost really horribly now after that.
Yeah, that's so distasteful. Like, that's so distasteful. Fuck him.
Yeah,
man.
Otherwise, it was as fun as it could have been. It was always going to be a shit show, but at least it was a shit show that lasted. Before that, for some reason, the co-main event ended up being Nyman Gracie versus Dave Marfone. Prelim planned earlier in the card that they then realized that booking 4 fights, one of them a title fight for a 2-hour TV window with advertising and promos all throughout, was not going to work. So they bumped it and somehow ended up with putting it in the co-main event. Like, you couldn't slow that roll after the Brent Primus weirdness or after Zach Freeman and Aaron Pico. Maybe put it in there, give people a moment to recover from that weird shit.
Yeah,
it had to be the co-main event of the night.
Yeah, it definitely did not belong in the co-main event, and that has to be like something to do with the Gracie name. There has to be powers that be that were like, okay, if it's gonna go this way, you're gonna go ahead and put Gracie in as the co-main. But what I mean,
I think they must have been they must have kept thinking they were just going to do it as a dark bout later, and then they had a pay-per-view slot to fill. You know, they'd promised people a night of pay-per-view action, and they had 3 straight first-round finishes, and we're like, okay, actually, we need to slow this down a little.
Yeah, but yeah, weird, horrible co-main, but at least it was a finish.
Yeah, it was a pretty ugly, not good fight, but it was fun. It was a fun finish because Gracie got him Marfone's back, and Marfone decided to do a front flip to try to get him off and landed on Gracie's head. But Gracie stayed on him and choked him out, so that was fun. Otherwise, there was a lot of really terrible kickboxing and Gracie failing
sloppy wrestling. Like that first round got really tough to watch for a little bit.
Marfone seemed like a guy who wanted to be a wrestle grappler, but did not want to wrestle or grapple with Nyman Gracie. So it just was like a guy who doesn't want to know how to kickbox, forced into a striking battle with somebody who doesn't want to kickbox.
Yeah, the only thing he really had going for him was his ability to stuff the takedown.
Yep.
But outside of this, he had nothing to offer.
Yeah, it was an ugly fight. All right, before that, Matt Mitrione, Fedor Emelianenko. My preview on this was this fight was going to be shocking, short, and just totally sort of make you wonder what the fuck just happened, and that Mitrione would knock out Fedor, and I feel like that really delivered on all fronts. I'm not saying I thought that it was going to be a double KO, that Mitrione recovered first and then knocked out Fedor, but
Holy
it
shit.
definitely was a short, sharp, sad loss for Fedor fans.
You know what, though? It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Like, it wasn't a sustained beating where he took so many unnecessary shots, but the referee doesn't exactly want to call it because it's Fedor. So, like, if he had to get knocked out, this is, like, best-case scenario, in my eyes, at least. You know?
Yeah, but he still went – I mean, they called it a TKO, but he was out cold.
Yeah, he was out cold. I mean, that's what happens, though. I mean, Mitrione's a huge motherfucker. But the double knockout or the double knockdown was so spectacular, unexpected. Oh man, they both connected at the same time, both hard shots. And I mean, the guy with less miles recovered faster and got the W. And that's what it came down to.
Yeah, after on the heels of this and the Fabio Maldonado fight, it's getting really hard to want to see Fedor out there against anyone. You know?
Unless it's strictly legends. Like him and Randy Couture is a lot of fun. That's a lot of fun.
Oh, God.
Hypothetically, what am I saying? Hypothetically, it's a lot of fun. In theory, it sounds like it could be fun. As in, they are probably the same kind of competition. But Matt is still, he should be fighting for the heavyweight title in Bellator. Not fighting for it.
He's also almost 40 and definitely has gotten hurt on the first hard shot he's been hit with in each of his last few fights. But then again, Bellator heavyweight title hasn't been fought for in like half a decade. So
yeah, and the front runner, I guess, is Congo, who's also old as sin. So
yeah, I don't know. All right, so that fight was notably shocking and sad. Before that, Brent Primus beat Michael Chandler for the lightweight title. Now, so Chandler rolled his ankle mid-fight. I thought it was a kick initially. That was my thought. Is that, I was tweeting and all that at the same time, and Primus was kicking like crazy, and I thought Primus landed a kick and Chandler buckled Chandler's knee, but Chandler actually just rolled his ankle. Couldn't put any weight on it. The ref stopped it, and the doctor came in and called the fight off from there.
Which, it was weird.
It was so. My feeling on this, and I don't. This is in some commission rules, but not in all commission rules. But my feeling on this is that should be a no contest
because he did it to himself.
Well, because it's a freak injury that didn't result from a strike.
But the argument could be made that it was it
Like,
was made while evading a strike. So that's technically a move. It's a
but it
defensive
wasn't
move
made
that
while
didn't.
waiting a strike, even.
But
I
it's
mean,
part of his like leaping in and out style. Like it bit him in the ass big
yeah.
time.
I feel like freak injuries that end fights, to me, like that's a perfect reason to have a no contest. Like, they didn't have a fight. That was not decided by anything Brent Primus did. It wasn't decided by any competitive back and forth. Michael Chandler just fucked his ankle and the fight ended. Like,
Shit happens for
I
sure.
don't know. Yeah.
But that, I mean, you make a
Still,
good argument there. Like that's definitely, if someone gets taken out because of something outside of what their opponent does, like completely isolated, then
yeah.
I can understand making that a no contest.
And
For
if
sure.
it's late enough in the fight, because to me it should be, it goes to the judges if it's late enough in the fight for there to be multiple rounds to score.
Right.
But if it's in like the first round, you haven't had a fight, essentially. I mean, I get that Brent Primus is really excited that he won the title, and everybody who likes Brent Primus is excited he won the title, but like, that's no way to crown a champion.
It definitely isn't. But it puts the referee in a tough position though, because
Yeah.
I mean, so is he stopping the fight to have the doctor come in and take a look, and then stopping the fight based off based off the doc's recommendation? Because there's no instant replay.
Yeah.
So it's like, how does the referee know whether or not, or know what caused the injury to begin with?
Yeah, it was a weird, that whole thing was weird. Like, I get that, people can check to see, like, we have doctors check cuts in a fight to see if it's something that can stop the fight or not. So technically, I guess they could check injuries as well, but we never see it happen.
Yeah,
To
never.
me, it's kind of like, if the guy can't fight, the fight's over. You don't need to call the doctor. If you're gonna stop the fight because somebody's injured, then he's injured and the fight's done. I have a question about whether or not he can keep going, and he seems like he can keep going. Then just let the fight keep going.
Yeah, that's
To me, I
probably
mean,
how it should
I
be.
know Michael Chandler said he'd rather have his foot cut off, but that it is honestly for the best to stop that fight and not let him fuck his ankle permanently.
Yeah, like give it all with a hurt ankle and then never fight again just to go face Brent Primus. Like, no, sir. Excellent call stopping the fight.
Yeah. Yeah, I got no problem with it stopping. It's a weird situation all over.
Hopefully they'll do it again soon, though.
I'm sure Brent Primus is not going to get to fight anyone other than Michael Chandler. If Michael Chandler were injured for a year, I get the feeling that Brent Primus would not get to fight anyone other than Michael Chandler.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think Bellator is not. They want that fight played back.
I wonder what the odds are going to look like next time.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh, it's going to be it should be closer than they were this time, I guess. But they were I think they were really wide this time. I mean, Chandler was like
Chandler opened up at like -600 or -5, and they grew wider as the fight went on.
Yeah.
So that means people were dropping money on him at -500, meaning they're dropping a lot of money to win not a lot of money. So a lot of people, aren't too happy with this card right now.
Yep. So, all right. After that, speaking of fights Bellator might want to have back, Zach Freeman choked out Aaron Pico in 24 seconds. It was like the 4th fastest finish in Bellator history.
He wasn't ready. He wasn't ready.
He wasn't ready. I feel bad because I mostly stayed entirely away from any Aaron Pico stuff in the lead up to this. I've done plenty of scouting, but I didn't tell people to pump the brakes near as much as I feel like I should have, given what happened in the lead up. But it really is an example, especially for media. It's a media caution. Do not hype some guy you have literally never watched fight. Like, if you've never seen someone fight once, maybe don't go calling them the best prospect to ever enter MMA.
And I really think that should go across all disciplines. Like, even if they're just been a boxer, even if they've only been a kickboxer, like, unless you've seen them in an MMA fight, it's really hard to say, oh, this person is so good,
Yeah.
or you know, they have all this potential. Their ceiling is this high.
Yeah. You literally have no idea. The best thing you can say about Aaron Pico is that he's a phenomenal athlete, speed and strength and dexterity and dynamic movement, and that should translate into a good MMA career, but there are plenty of dudes that does not translate for.
Yeah, potential is the word here.
And,
I mean, he's got ample potential, but will it be realized or not? We're going to have to wait again to see.
Yeah, it's going to, I mean, we need like 5 fights, 2 or 3 years of watching this guy come up to know. Like, even people like Henry Cejudo, like when he debuted as a prospect on some regional undercards crushing cans, you know, there were people like taking notice, but it was not nearly as big a deal as this. And, you know, Cejudo is an Olympic gold medalist. Like, people calling Pico the best prospect ever to enter the sport. You gotta actually spend a little more time doing tape study and scouting people.
Yeah, for sure. This was, I mean, it was definitely tough. And what the biggest takeaway for me, or what's the opposite of a takeaway? I don't know. Anyways, I saw nothing from Pico. Like, I know nothing about him at all, other than he can be dropped and he can be submitted. Like, that's all that we have to take away. So we still know nothing about him.
Him getting rocked is a bad sign for his striking acumen as a guy who's supposed to be like a natural wrestle boxer. Him going right out and immediately in 20 seconds just getting rocked is not great. But, I mean, it's ending up subbed isn't a bad thing. JDS got subbed early. Anderson Silva lost early fights and got subbed a couple of times in his early career. Jacare got knocked out in his first fight. You got all sorts of great fighters get worked early in their careers. It happens. It's just, it definitely makes Pico likely not the most amazing phenom prospect ever to hit the sport. Because even dudes like Anderson Silva and Jacare took like your normal 5 to 6 years of development to become superstar fighters. Like,
and who knows, this could just take off so much pressure. So he comes out in his next performance and just looks absolutely amazing. Like, who knows? So much unknown.
I would take him, you know, let's knock it down a notch from the Chris Weidman, Cain Velasquez track where they literally come out and within 3 years are fighting for titles. You know, that is maybe not going to be Aaron Pico.
And I mean, I was a little concerned at the weigh-ins when I saw Freeman kind of towering over him. I was like, man, how is this even the same weight class?
Yeah, Freeman, like, people were talking before the fight started that Freeman, apparently he's like at 180, 190 out, you know, and he looked like a big dude in there, you know, and he didn't look like a major athletic step slower than Pico either. So
I wonder who they're going to give Freeman to next. They'll probably
no, he's not going to get a big bump out of this though.
I think they might though. They might feed him to a lion, like someone way out of his league.
Well, I mean, he might get a hard fight, but it won't be like, they're not going to go building Zach Freeman. Very likely.
No. I mean, like using him as maybe to bring someone back from a loss, someone.
Yeah, he'll get somebody like a Pitbull brother or something like that next.
Right, exactly. Or Henry Corrales or someone.
He'll get Lorenz Larkin coming up after this. They'll push him back up to welterweight, and he'll get Lorenz Larkin next. All right.
Speaking of which,
that brings us to Douglas Lima versus Lorenz Larkin. And, I mean, credit to you. Lima's leg kicks were out in force early. And more than that, even, I think more than anything, it was just that once Larkin started to get comfortable and open up, the fact that he's never, ever been a good defensive boxer, somebody who can really move defensively and box at the same time, that came to bite him against a really much more powerful puncher.
Yeah, and it seemed like Larkin really wanted to open up with kicks, But Lima checked him right off the bat and started throwing his own. And Larkin was like, oh, okay, maybe I don't want to go kick for kick with this guy. And then he just became one-dimensional and was trying to outbox Lima. And he's just not a better boxer.
Yeah, and I think he may have been a better boxer in flashes and in spots, but every time he would start to build momentum, he wasn't able to overcome the power disparity by being a safe, aggressive boxer. Anytime he tried to push the pace and push forward, because he'd get comfortable and he would be like picking at Lima and get his jab going and have him against the cage and starting to build confidence and open up more and more. And as he started to lead more, suddenly that defensive gap was just too wide for somebody who hits as hard as Lima does.
And Lima's one of those guys that when his back gets to the cage, he goes into absolute wounded tiger mode, like cornered animal. Like he's dangerous with his back to the cage. Absolutely dangerous. And yeah, like you were saying, Larkin got a little comfortable on the feet. He starts coming forward, gets dropped in the second, managed to recover. And, you know, he kind of simmered out for the next couple of rounds and then started picking it up in the fourth and then came on strong in the fifth, but it was kind of too little too late at that point.
Yeah. It's one of those where moment for moment, Larkin may be the slightly more technical striker or slightly faster striker, but the only way for him to overcome the power disparity was to really open his offense up a lot. And when he did that, it just led him into all kinds of trouble.
And part of that is because Lima has a pretty stout guard. I mean, he's defensively pretty sound. He really wasn't taking flush shots.
He also had
when Lima was connecting.
Jab. He had a really good jab going that gave Larkin a lot of trouble having to fight through that.
Yeah, and it's real basic. Lima has a real fundamentally simple, with all due respect, calling it simple, but just a simple game, like nothing crazy. But, I mean, it all works. It's all functional.
Yep. So, good win for Lima. Look forward to seeing him fight Rory McDonald next.
Yes, sir. Let me ask you this real fast. Where would you rank Lima amongst the world's top welterweights right now?
Well, that's a weird thing because the welterweight division, like if you go look at the UFC's rankings at the moment, their welterweight division is kind of getting weird. Like they've kind of let it stagnate for a while with some people that aren't fighting much. You know, I mean, you've got guys like Tarek Safadine still hanging on to a ranking spot.
Carlos Condit.
Yeah, Carlos Condit way up at the top. Neil Magny's been out for a minute now, but Dong Young Kim still hanging on to a spot despite never having beat a top-ranked fighter.
If we want to do a little bit of MMA math, we can say that Larkin beat Magny, Masvidal, and Lawler. So we can put Lima at maybe number 3 in the world. I know that sounds like so weird to say, because would you pick Lima over Lawler, Masvidal? Probably over Magny, but over those two?
Well, the thing with Lawler is that it's weird. It's hard to say where his career is right now because, he already has been fighting at an elite level well past his prime. And then he got flatlined in his last fight and hasn't fought since.
So he might be just another guy taking up space for a while.
We don't know. And, Donald Cerrone, he had a great climb, and then he just got murdered by Jorge Masvidal. And, so I would put Lima below Masvidal right now. Carlos Condit, I have no idea if Carlos Condit's even going to fight again.
Yeah.
But
I think he's top 5.
I would put him above Magny at the moment, at the very least. And then, Gunnar Nelson might beat him. Like, I wouldn't necessarily.
I could see Gunnar getting slept, though, on the same token.
I could see him getting slept, but I could also see him choking him out. I mean.
Has he ever been submitted?
Has he faced many really elite wrestlers?
Well, he hasn't really faced many elite anything, to be quite honest. Larkin is probably the most elite guy he's faced in a really long time, if not the most elite guy ever.
Yeah, so it's hard to say. Like, I don't. I don't put much. I don't put necessarily. I can't call that matchup without having seen it. I mean, Rick Hahn and Michael Sarayev, maybe the best grapplers he's faced lately. Actually, just kind of a brawler with some subs. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily put a lot of faith in his wrestling with him not facing a lot of guys who want to wrestle him. You know, like Gunnar Nelson can out wrestle most of the division, with a few exceptions. So, that would just be my feeling on that fight. Lima might sleep him. He certainly could. He's got
It'd be
the
fun to
power.
watch, that's for sure.
But yeah, so Lima right now, I mean, you can't ignore him in the top 10. Putting on a patient, calculated, powerful striking performance against a guy like Larkin, if nothing else, says that he's a top 10 welterweight right now.
Yeah, he really took very little damage in this fight.
Yeah, absolutely. He got hurt once and hurt Larkin a lot worse right after it.
Yeah.
All right. So before that, then we got down to the Bellator 180 prelim card, or the Bellator 180 main card kind of prelims, and Ryan Bader beating Phil Davis by split decision in a fight that could not have looked more like their first fight if they had scripted it to be their first fight.
Yeah, I think Bader and Davis are on loop at this point.
I don't even, I still think it was a bad idea for the UFC to cut both of them, or to let both of them walk, rather. But they are made to not fight each other. Like, Davis has done well outside of the UFC. He's looked good. He's looked a lot better than that fight. And even in this fight, you could see that his striking fundamentals have finally calmed down to something functional. But he's not made to fight Ryan Bader. He's just not. Like,
Davis has nothing for him in the grappling department, and he has really nothing for him in the striking department. He's got some body here and there and some volume strikes, but nothing significant. Whereas anytime Bader was landing, he was hurting him.
Well, if nothing else, Bader had a jab, and he could land the jab all fight, and Phil Davis short-armed 99% of the punches he threw. Like, there was a moment late in this fight where Phil Davis threw a 3-punch combination, and each one missed Bader by 6 inches. And, like, his arms are freaking huge. They're huge. They're long as hell. And it's just him checking his own punches back as he's throwing them. And he just, even though his fundamentals are obviously much better than they ever have been, he still just does not have a grasp of striking range.
It's just when it comes to doing it, he just I really believe it's because he doesn't like to get hit. And it's tough to go in there and throw in the pocket when you know the person that you're throwing against hits harder than you do. Like, it's tough to overcome that, and
which
have
I think
confidence
is how both of them felt in this fight. Honestly, they both were like, "Man, I don't want to step in here. This dude has some power for me."
Yeah, I don't know what Bader's deal was. He might have been too concerned with wanting to thwart the takedown, but neither of them really had any volume, and these rounds were really tough to judge. So I'm not upset that it's a split decision.
No.
I don't care that Bader won. I don't care that Phil lost. I hope they just don't fight again. I think that's the best thing about Bader winning. But I'm curious to see what's next for him. Maybe King Mo will fight him.
Yeah, they gotta find some more people for Bader to fight, and hope that one of these guys loses so that they can put them back in like a more interesting big fight. Because, like, I still think they can be in good big fights apart from one another and be fun, but together it's just terrible. It's just a terrible idea.
Yeah, styles make fights, but they also ruin them. So,
yep. Before that, James Gallagher, Chinzo Machida. Gallagher just ran through Machida like a hot knife through butter.
surprising. I did not expect that at all. I expected Gallagher to get the takedown, but I did not expect a smoke check. That was surprising. He looked for real. Like, he looked legit as I've ever seen him against Machida. Like, I've seen Gallagher struggle with scrubs, and I'm not saying Machida's all that in a bag of chips, but he at least is a dangerous knockout artist. And
he did hit Gallagher a couple of times really hard early in that fight when Gallagher was just trying to wade in for the clinch. But after that, Gallagher actually feinted his way into the pocket and into a takedown, and that was it.
yeah, I mean, he executed the game plan to perfection. He wanted no part of the stand-up, which was the ace move to do. And once he took the back, I mean, it was a wrap. The ground and pound set up the rear naked choke. And I just hope they put Gallagher up against AJ McKee. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, be a fun fight, fun top prospect battle. Certainly makes more sense than throwing Gallagher in against Patricky, or against Pitbull, which is what he wants right now.
No. I don't want to see that yet.
So before that, Heather Hardy, Alice Yager. Fun fight. In the moment, it seemed kind of like, I don't know. I'm not going to say unimpressive, but kind of like, I don't know. Neither one could really find a way to hurt the other one. You know, like Yager was landing a lot of good shots in the moment. She was doing a lot better against Hardy than she was supposed to be doing. Like, a lot better.
Well, I don't know. I expected Yager to hold her own just because she had the experience.
Yager was brought in as a, 4 and 5 fighter to give Hardy a good-looking win. I mean, let's not split hairs here.
Yager actually won me over when she walked out to some Mobb Deep.
I know.
Sick ones. Rest in peace to Prodigy for any hip-hop heads out there.
But what I was going to say, though, is then you see the numbers at the end of the fight, and combined, they threw almost like 500 strikes.
That's fun. I mean, it was definitely a fun fight. And I think the thing with Hardy is, like, she came out and the first round, she just did not look comfortable, as she shouldn't in her pro debut. But by the third round, she seemed a lot more comfortable, a lot more fluid out there, and she looked like she was having fun by the end of it. So
yeah, I think the big thing to me with Hardy is she's young in the sport. Whether or not she continues to give it any real drive or not, I'm not going to bank on it as like a big move for her. She's 35. She doesn't look like she's in phenomenal shape. She doesn't look like she's about to take over the MMA world. But she definitely came out. The big thing you could see is, even as the fight wore on, and even as she got tired and had like an early adrenaline dump too. She's been boxing long enough that she can throw combinations all day. Even as she gets tired, even as she's throwing 300 strikes in a fight, she can just still put her hands together round after round after round.
While eating shots too. Like, she's down to take a few shots, which is huge. Like, she's so game. And I think that's my biggest takeaway is I think Yager definitely exposed some holes in her game through kicking and like a lot of holes.
Yeah.
But Hardy showed just a willingness to be down for the knuck. Like, she's just down to fight. And I think that can, carry her, a little bit in this somewhat shallow and new division.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if she ever gets matched up with somebody who really can wrestle, because a big part of that too was that Yager had 0 leg drive to finish a takedown. Anytime she would try to go for anything, the moment she hit Hardy, she would just stall all her momentum and drive to finish anything. And it wasn't like a result of Hardy having amazing takedown defense or anything. It was just like, oh, I hit the hip. I have no idea where to go from here. I have no idea how to push through this at all.
Yeah, I think Hardy's ability to angle off really helped her in stopping some of those takedowns.
It may have. I would not. I think it may have been that Yager just didn't have the right fundamentals of wrestling to push. Like, she doesn't get low enough. She doesn't drive through a takedown well enough. But then again, there's not a lot of women in women's MMA. It's just a physiological thing that do that well. The great women MMA wrestlers are pretty few and far between.
It's true for now.
So, it'll be interesting to see how Bellator matches her up. I mean, like I said, at 35, she's probably out there to be a fun feature fighter for ballers, and let her go out there and throw 300 punches. It'll be fun.
Hell yeah. I mean, I was entertained, thoroughly entertained. I thought it was a great way to kick off the Spike TV card.
Before that, we had some shit. I don't really care about any of it. You want to talk about any of it?
Yeah, I think we should give Ryan Couture the nickname Regional. Regional Ryan Couture, I think, is perfect. And that fight was shit. And it actually broke up a 4-fight finishing streak for the card. So, damn that fight.
Yeah, it was ugly. Otherwise, I mean, they were fun. It's the Bellator Human Sacrifice Hour, so dudes are getting slapped right and left.
That is perfect.
But yeah, overall, back to the top. Chael Sonnen, Wanderlei Silva. The best it could have been without somebody getting knocked out. I mean, I don't know. And maybe for casual fans just out there to see the violence of it, that's a disappointment. Maybe it ends up being a bad fight because of that. But just the capper of a weird-ass night of fights. Double knockdown for Mitrione Fedor. Nyman Gracie versus Dave Marfone ending up as the co-main event after like a huge series of emotional highs and lows. You just suddenly get this weird this weird prelim plugger meaningless fight to get Gracie a win, stuck in the co-main. Brent Primus taking Michael Chandler's belt off a doctor stoppage because Chandler screwed his ankle up. Zach Freeman absolutely annihilating Aaron Pico in 24 seconds.
What a weird
And
card.
Douglas Lima and Lorenz Larkin putting on a patient and not the fight a lot of people showed up for.
Real technical. Real technical. But Jimmy Smith tweeted out, he goes, "Am I on mushrooms or is this the craziest night in Bellator history?"
Why not both?
I wouldn't be surprised.
All right. On that note, you can find me on Twitter at TheZaneSimon. You can find Eddie on Twitter at the Eddie Mercado. You can find both of us over at BloodyElbow.com. We will not be back next week. We will be back tomorrow night for UFC Oklahoma City. Not me, but Nate will be back on the 6th round. Steph will be on Twitter. Then next week, no UFC event. We'll be back with the MMA Depressed Us and Heavy Hands and If I Did It and Knuckle Up and all our normal shows. All that good stuff. So thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Give us a like over on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, MMANation.com, DOTCOM. That's where you get all the latest Bloody Elbow shows, videos, news, analysis, all that good stuff. And we will see you all next time.